This is what we want before we go into funding. Before you can go into funding, all right, you want your credit score as high as possible. That's why we really encourage you to buy trade lines, pay down your credit cards, whatever you need. You got to have no negatives or only one or two, right? Like if you have like late payments are really bad for funding, bankruptcies are really bad for funding. I mean, any negative account, okay, is going to hurt your funding. We can still try, but it's going to hurt your funding. So it's always better to have no negatives, as few inquiries as possible. Now, inquiries, the deal with funding is inquiries will last on your credit report for 2 years, okay, and then they'll naturally fall off. If they are attached to a credit card, we can't remove them without risking losing that credit. This is very important. The maximum number of inquiries that you really want to have before you go into funding is 2 on each bureau, though. Okay, each bureau. If you have more than 2 inquiries, 3, we can still attempt funding. Not going to get the best results, but anything over 3, absolutely no funding on that bureau. You will not get approved for any of the funding that we try and do. And if you have 2 inquiries, it's going to be a little bit slower of a funding process because we're only going to be able to apply to 1 credit card at a time before we remove the inquiry while we're in the funding process, okay? So ideally, no negatives, no inquiries. That would be so perfect, but not everybody's like that. I know everybody has a certain situation, but as few inquiries as possible and no negatives. We also need your utilization to be below 10%. That's what we really want, okay? Below 15% is still fundable. Anything over 15%, we've done around 15 to 20. You just don't get as good results. Over 20, you're kind of SOL, right? You're at, whatever it is. You're out of luck, all right? You're not going to be able to get funding. So you either have to buy trade lines to lower your utilization, or you have to pay off your credit cards before we go into funding. Okay. You have to have at least a credit history of above 2 years. After 2 years, you get a lot more money. Below 2 years, you're only going to get really derpy, little tiny, not very good credit cards. Okay. And this is for your personal credit. So when you go to Experian, you're going to look at your credit and you're going to click on credit age. If it's above 2 years, we're cool. If it's below 2 years, you have to buy trade lines, or you have to be patient. Mostly just have to buy trade lines. All right, and you have to have at least 5 primary accounts, okay? This means you have to have at least, 5 credit cards or 2 credit cards and 3 loans, but you have to have proof that you've actually had and used your credit properly to get maximum funding. Now, if you have no credit cards, you really should probably buy trade lines, but you should also sign up for those credit builder loans that we talk about in the course, because those credit builder loans will at least add positive accounts to your credit report. And you need to have at least 5, okay? They can be any variety of credit cards or loans on your credit report. This is because banks are risk managers, right? And they are risk mitigators. Like, they're trying to have as little risk as possible. So they don't want to be the first person to give you a big credit card, all right? They want to see that you have payment history and you've been responsible with credit cards in the past, which is why you need 5 primary accounts. Okay, so you really want these things before we go into funding. If this is what it is, then we will do the funding for you. We will charge 10% of the funding, and we will get you as much money as humanly possible. This is just on the personal credit, okay? Now, if you have a LLC or a business, ideally you have some income. You've worked on your business credit file before, or you've gotten some funding for your credit before, or you've gone through our process of building up the business's credit. If not, we can also get you business credit cards, but they will be attached to your personal credit, okay? So it's either you have a business that has income, or you have built up the business's credit, or your personal credit is really good, and then we can get personal and business credit when we go into funding. Our goal is always to get you maximum amounts of funding, so I'm just telling you what it takes, but we will do everything for you. And the steps are: book a call. We're going to do like a consultation. We're going to look at your credit together. We're going to basically put in some realistic expectations of how much we'll be able to get you. We'll make sure that we got all your information, or you have the form to fill out. Then we need all your info, so because we're going to be doing the funding for you. This is done for you. And then we're going to make a customized funding plan, so you're going to know which credit cards we're going to apply for, and which loans and which credit lines and things of that nature that we're going to apply for. And when we apply for them, we're going to keep you updated on what's happening, and we're going to be in communication, and we're going to go for the goal. We're going to go for a home run. We're going to get you as much money as we humanly can for your personal credit and your business. Now, let's say you have specific requests. We can totally do that as well. A lot of people come to us and they just want the 0% interest credit cards. Cool, we can figure that out. Or they just want the business credit. Cool, you got to have a business. But I always would push you, just let us, as a professional funding company doing our thing, let us get you maximum funding right now. This is going to get you the most amount of capital. It's going to be mostly in credit cards, so you don't have to use the money. If you don't have to pay for the money if you don't use it, but you will have access to it. We can also get you really big loans. We could do all kinds of fun stuff. But this is to do the funding for you. But your credit has to be fundable. Okay, so again, just look at this one more time. Now, if you're like close to these things, then let's do it. Let's run it. Book a call. If you're nowhere near any of these, then forget about it. Okay, and you need to have at least, I would say a 700 credit score to really get some good funding. Okay, and then you have to have no negatives or old negatives. Sometimes if you have old negatives that are a few years old, it's okay. But if you have brand new late payments or brand new collections or anything like that, that's a no-go. You want to have less than 2 inquiries per bureau, ideally. Anything over 3, you're done for. We can't do funding. You have to wait. Below 10% utilization, have to have 2 years of credit age and at least 5 primary accounts. But if you're ready to go, let's get this money. All right, last things. We do charge for funding. Okay, we won't charge you anything up front if you qualify, right? But we will charge 10% of whatever we get you in the funding. Meaning, if I get you a $10,000 credit card, you're going to pay me $1,000 for doing all the work, right? That's 10% of whatever we get you. But we're doing all the work for you. We're using our system to make sure you get the maximum amount, and we are an expert team of funders, and we're very good at getting results. We're going to basically apply to credit cards. We're going to remove your inquiries. We're going to make sure that you get all the money possible. We're going to leave no money on the table, or we're going to make sure that we get you just 0% interest credit cards or just business credit cards, whatever you really want. If you don't want to pay the 10%, then we would charge $10,000. And typically, once we get you maximum funding or while we're funding you, we'll usually give you a little bit of a discount if you pay it all off right away, or we can do a 3-pay, but that's pretty much it. But at the end of this problem, when we get you all the funding and get you all the money, you're going to have all the money, right? And we're going to consult you and coach you on best ways to use that money as well. So this is a continuous relationship that we're building. And then whenever you want to go and maybe get another LLC funding, or you want to do credit stacking, we can do another round of funding, typically anywhere from 3 to 6 months after the first round of funding. Okay, the first round of funding, though, is always the most difficult to get, which is why I highly recommend you let us do it with you and for you. Okay, and then after that, you can basically take what you learn, and you can do it. But yeah, if we're going to do the work, though, we got to get paid, and we charge 10% of whatever we get you, and we're going to go and shoot for the moon, though. We're going to try and get you as much as we possibly can, because we're going to be funding partners, and we're going to be in this together, and we're going to do all of it for you. I mean, you're going to probably have to call the bank a couple times and just verify that it's you and that you want the credit cards. But yeah, pretty much everything is done for you, and when you get to use our system, you get to see how it's really done by the pros, and we make sure that we'll get you the best results possible. That's what's cool about this. All right, talk to you soon.